Hi, everyone, and welcome to Main Street Swim with Jim. This is Jim Ludwig from Main Street Financial Planning. And today we have with us Steve Berger from Severna Park, Maryland. He's an estate planning attorney. Welcome aboard, Steve.
Hi, Jim.
Thank you. We're glad to have you today. And our feature this month at Main Street is talking about taxes, and there's all kinds of taxes. And estate planning is an interesting area because it's more than just estate taxes, correct?
Right. I mean, we used to be very concerned about the federal tax, and even more so with Maryland, because we had $1 million exemption when the federal increased. But Maryland is now up to 4 million, and going to the federal limit has really become a non-issue. So the things we're worried about is making sure that we get a step up in basis upon death, and just trying to minimize all the fees associated with closing out an estate.
Well, recently we had a new tax bill called the Tax Cut and Jobs Act of 2017. How did that affect estate planning?
Well, it really helped the super wealthy, because they doubled the estate tax exemption from $5 million to $10 million, and that's adjusted for inflation. So it's really up to 11 million per person. So a married couple, we're talking 22 million. But it only runs till 2024. So the people that really can take advantage of it are the people that have 30 or 40 million and can afford to give away 22 million right now before it goes back down, or a new administration gets in and they decide to cut the tax even further.
Okay. Well, so that tax is not permanent, like many of the things that were in the Tax Cut Act.
Right. 'Cause almost anything that was going to increase the deficit has to have a sunset provision. So 2024 is the sunset on a lot of these provisions, whether they will continue or be changed.
Attorneys that specialize in estate planning have a big conference every year in Florida. I can't remember the name. It starts with an H. But didn't you recently attend this national conference?
Right. I went down to Florida. It's called Heckerling, and it's composed of experts from all across the U.S. In fact, I ran into some people that are in St. Croix and Puerto Rico and places like that have their own problems, but they were still coming to that conference because they're catering to American citizens or U.S. citizens that are in those localities, or they might have their practice somewhere else and live down in the islands. But the emphasis in that conference is with a lot of the leading edge estate planning techniques, but there's also training for attorneys that are just coming up. And it's not just attorneys, there's also CPAs there that specialize in estate planning, and some financial advisors.
Well, in your blog, you talked about it wasn't just the estate taxes. There were other kinds of taxes that are a part of the practice in estate planning. Could you kind of enumerate those?
Well, income tax is a big thing because we set up trusts, and trusts at $12,000 in a year are taxed at the highest rate. So right now, the people that were paying in 2017, that was 39.6%. It's dropped to 37, so it's down a little bit. But one of the ways we avoid that tax is we make distributions. So, and we use the K1. So if we can distribute income out to the beneficiaries, we can get it reported on their tax return. Although that does defeat the purpose of creating these trusts that exist forever in perpetuity, or become a reservoir for that time that you really need to. But that's one of the ways that we've kind of got around the high income tax rates with 39.6%, and then you have the surcharge for medical care plus your state tax. A trust could be taxed at 50%. So it doesn't matter to the really wealthy people that are in the highest brackets, no matter what you do. But for the average person that mom and dad passes a nice size estate to, but leave it in trust for lots of reasons. One of the reasons would be to prevent it from going to an ex-spouse or somebody that is involved in a business venture, or maybe a doctor with a malpractice claim. There's all kinds of reasons why we want to leave things in trust, but we also don't want to pay more taxes than we should have to. So I guess that's one of the reasons why income tax planning is a big thing.
How about IRA planning when it comes to estate planning? We were talking earlier before we started about Roth conversions. Why is that so effective, and how can that save on taxes?
Okay, well, and Natalie Choate, who's written the book, in fact, I have it sitting somewhere in my office on IRAs, was there to speak. And what she's saying is Roth conversion, if you know you're not going to need the money and you can pass that to a younger person, there's still going to be required minimum distributions for a Roth upon your death, but it's over the lifetime of the beneficiary. So if they're young, you can continue to defer taxes and let that money grow tax-free. And when it comes out, it's not going to be taxed. So the question is whether you can afford to pay the taxes now, and are you going to leave it in there long enough?
Well, if you have a lot of medical expenses, wouldn't that lower your tax liability and offer you some opportunity to do some conversion?
Right, and that might be a chance. And that used to be one of the reasons why for the average person, we weren't converting to Roths, because you can use that. If you ended up in a nursing home or assisted living, you could draw money out of your IRA and then have a deduction to offset some of that income tax. But if you see that you have enough money and you've got medical deductions, this is a great chance to convert to Roth, and then instead of maybe naming your kids, name your grandkids as the beneficiaries of that IRA. Because not only did the estate tax get doubled, it also doubled the generation skipping tax, which is an additional tax on what you pass to your grandkids. So now you can pass $11 million to your grandkids without getting a second tax on assets.
Well, and they are a much younger age, so the amount they have to pull out of that Roth IRA every year is pretty small. And so that's a wonderful opportunity for compounding and increasing the value.
Right. Yeah. $10,000 to a 2-year-old could last a long time.
Well, I have to, it's a good idea to think about that for my grandkids too. So let's go specifically to Maryland, because you're a Maryland attorney. Do you practice in any other states besides Maryland?
No, just Maryland.
And so what issues these days are specific to Marylanders? Because we have more clients in Maryland for Main Street than any other state. What things are there specific in Maryland we should be worried about these days when it comes to estate planning?
Well, I think one of the things we might be looking for in Maryland is a change in the estate tax, whether it goes all the way. It's supposed to go to the estate tax, the federal limit, and when next year, and there's a bill to freeze things at 5. Whether that passes or not, I'm not sure that we're going to get that. The other thing, when the federal government reduced their deductibility of a lot of expenses, and some of the most common probably are people that employ business expenses are no longer deductible. That's going to increase the Maryland income tax, and the state is going to have a windfall unless they give some money back. But my concern is the federal government is also, in a year or two, is going to really feel the effects of this tax bill, and the place that they could really cut back would be in medical assistance. And
right, it did go to 10% a couple of years ago, and with this tax bill went back to 7.5 for 2017 and 2018. But do we know what's going to happen in 2019 with the deductions for medical expenses?
well, I think we're set at 7.5% there.
Okay.
For the time being, unless that was one of those things that was left out of the tax bill and then got put back in, and they went one better than 7.5 was probably 10 years ago. So the legislatures must have remembered that number.
Well, any final thoughts for our viewers and listeners today?
Well, I mean, there's going to be some opportunities with the tax bill to say, they've cut a couple percent, and the big deal is for small business owners. There's the 20% deduction for some of your income, so that will help. And C corporations, their taxes cut to 21%. So this could be an opportunity to save some money, because who knows what's going to happen in the future, as this bill has shown that tax laws can be changed quite easily. I guess the other thing I was going to mention about Maryland finally has an ABLE Act for, if you have any of your viewers have disabled children, and especially works well with children that may be disabled but are still able to work, so they can use this account in conjunction with a regular special needs trust and hold on to their Social Security income. So there's some opportunities out here right now.
That's great. And so contacting your estate planning attorney and getting regular checkups is just as important as meeting with your financial planner. I know many people have told me, well, I got all my estate planning done, I don't need to worry about it. And I haven't died yet, so why go back? No. So Steve, thank you for sharing those ideas, the new features and the Tax Cut Act, what's happening in Maryland with the estate taxes and with ABLE accounts. We want to thank you. If people wanted to get a hold of you, what's the easiest way to do that? Do you have a website?
Right, and it's Berger Wills, BERGER Wills.com. So they can go to my website, they can get access to my blog, they can book an appointment or send a question to us. So that's probably the easiest way. Or they can call my office, 410-777-5916.
Steve, that is just super. And thank you very much. You've helped a number of our clients. We really appreciate it. Folks, you've been listening to me and watching me interview Steve Berger, an estate planning attorney from Severna Park, Maryland. which is located somewhere between Annapolis and Baltimore. And this has been Jim Ludwig, a certified financial planner with Main Street Financial Planning. And we call this Swim with Jim because we're going to avoid all those sharks. Everybody have a great day. Thank you.